with all due respect.
All right, we are recording. Gray, I used to get nervous when I hit that button because I'd be like, oh, like I'm on screen. Now I'm just like, just hit record and let's just roll this thing out.
Jumble word, I know.
Right? Let's just roll this thing out. So I am going to call you the first time I say it. I'm going to call you Dr. Tiffany Jones. Can I say that? I will do that one time. And then I promise it'll be Tiff from here on out.
Perfect.
This is our podcast with all due respect. And I feel like we've jumped all over the what we talk about and who we bring on. At this point, Gray, I just say if that person sounds interesting, I'm going to bring them on.
Yeah.
I don't even care what they do.
I don't care what they do either. Yeah.
It could be just like a crossing guard by the school. I'm going to be like, hey,
your story's sick. Let's have a chat.
Your story's crazy. You're coming on the podcast because you're going to be interesting to talk to. So we have Dr. Tiffany Jones. I said it twice. And I was introduced to you. At first you spoke at the athletic directors conference.
Yes, right? I did.
And then Coach V, Stephen Venegapal, hit me up and goes, hey, I got somebody you got to meet and see if you can get involved with what they're doing. And I trust him. So I said, okay. Then we went back and forth. And then I brought it up in the office and they're like, even our athletic director was like, she was great. Our kind of the girl that runs the show at the athletic, they call her she's like the administrative assistant, but she runs the show. You know those people?
Always.
Right.
That's who you got to know. That's know everything.
You got to know. You're not getting anywhere if you don't know her. So she's the gatekeeper. And she's like, she's awesome. And then I just said, well, I'm going to bring her on the podcast because this is a subject I'm interested in. Can you introduce our people to what you do?
Absolutely.
Please. So I don't.
So thank you guys for having me on. First and foremost, I'm a mental performance coach. And so it's really confusing because everyone will then say I'm a sports psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a licensed therapist. I think therapy is great. I think everyone should be in therapy. I really studied more the X science, biomechanics, and then psychology and the mental side of any kind of performance, especially sports, but any performance that we do. And so what I'm looking at is you hear the confidence and mental toughness and resilience and all that kind of stuff. And really what I try to do is I get it down to the basic science of it. And then why is it that we're not consistently good, especially when we have the perceived pressure. I get paid a lot of money to go in and watch practices of coaches and say, hey, they're like, we underperform when we're in games. I'm like, yeah, because your practices suck. Like they don't mimic at all what the athlete is going to think, feel, hear, or see when they get into that situation. And so, yeah, they look like they freeze or they don't perform. And so you can often tell when someone's in their head. So basically it's what happens when you get in your head. Do we ever help athletes or anyone get out of their head? We tell them to get out of their head, but they don't know how to do it or why they're even in their head in the first place. And so that's kind of my job. So I meet with teams, I meet with coaches, I meet with student athletes from pro all the way down to the youth level. And everyone is so nuanced, and I can always give some overarching mental skills as a starting point, but the more we can create routines or giving them the prep work, like where's your head even before you go into practice or a game? What happens when things go wrong? What are your triggers that send you into like survival mode where your body's going to shut down and your mind shuts down? So there's a lot of science to it. And then my job is to help them train the skills so that they can apply it, especially when they're under pressure.
I'm interested in how you got into that.
Quick story, sophomore year in high school, I knew I wanted to do something in sports, and I knew I was not going to be an MD. I was not going to be sports agent because I saw Jerry Maguire, not for me. Even though I love the movie, I was like, yeah, I can't, I'm relational. I can't be that cutthroat in that way. And so my dad bought me a book at a bookstore from a guy named Shane Murphy. He's one of the first sports psychologists in our country, and he worked with Olympians. And back in the day, they would put their phone numbers, authors would put their phone numbers on the book. And so I gave him a call when I was like 14, 15, talked to him, and I was like, man, that's what I'm going to do. And there was no Google. There was no, you flew by the seat of your pants. I guess I'm going to study psychology. And then you just started to figure it out. And here I am to this day doing it. But it was all because my dad and the phone number on the book.
Good for you. That's awesome.
I know that is so cool. What did your education look like?
I got my undergrad in psych and English. It was an accident. Everyone thinks I'm this great grammar English person. Yeah, no. And then I went to get my master's in applied sport and exercise psychology, and then got my doctorate in the same thing.
Okay, cool.
Wow.
Just wondering what that looks like from a step one to where you are now. Because I think it's so unique, very niche to be what you're in.
I think I fell in, I knew I didn't want to do the counseling angle because I didn't want to sit in an office all day.
Right. Yeah.
I get to go and shoot hoops with the guy and have conversations while we're shooting hoops. I can walk a golf course with my golfers. I get to go out to practices where I can go and hit someone on the arm and be like, hey, what's going on in your head right now? Because I can see that your performance is starting to dip, or you're struggling, or you're in your head, and catch them in real time so that you can actually try to apply things in real time. It's harder to sit in an office and then go, hey, I always say, if I do this right, it sounds super simple if I teach it right, but it is not easy. And I'm glad it's not easy, because if it was easy, I wouldn't have a job. So it's not easy.
Right.
What
that's super cool.
You talk about it being in sports, but what you just kind of, what you really just explained to me, while you do it in the niche of sports, you could probably take this to almost any area of life. Your relationships, your job, anything, and apply those principles to, you could probably go talk to a guy that's a manager of a grocery store.
Yes.
And go, hey, what's going on with your employees? What's going on in what is keeping you from performing and making this better? Or what environment is there?
Yep.
From my experience in knowing people in this field, or talking, or really being interested in this field, this conversation is a lot more pruning for the leaders than they think.
Yes.
They think when they bring you in, because you mentioned something in an email to me, you have 3 tracks here: parents, coaches, teacher, parents, coaches, players.
Yes.
Right. 3 areas. And I feel like people will bring you in to talk to their schools to be the bad guy to their kids. And what actually ends up doing is you turn the mirror on the parents and the coaches.
Absolutely.
And that's uncomfortable for coaches, because coaches like the title of being the boss.
You got it.
And coaches really like the fact that they say, I've been doing this 20 years. And I heard a really good quote. It's from a track coach. I've said it before, and I've had to tell people, I've heard other people quote it and say, I said it. And I'm like, time out. I didn't say it. I stole it.
We steal everything. I steal stuff.
Yeah, I steal a lot of things in what I've done. I'm not sure I've ever come up in strength conditioning with something original, to be honest with you. And that doesn't bother
That's life.
That doesn't bother
That's life.
I've heard people say, well, I've done this 20 years. I'm like, no, you haven't done it 20 years. You've done the same year 20 years in a row. Right? You've never grown. It's the same thing.
Yep.
You're the same coach you were 20 years ago.
Yes.
You just repeated it.
I'd have to argue that kids change, right? So what are some things that you've seen since you've been doing this for a while, kids my age when I was going through youth sports? So
28,
10, 15 years. Yeah, I'm 28. So 10, 15 years ago versus the kids now.
I think that's such a good question, because you have to start to accept. We bash this generation. We complain. My age, probably 30 and up, we're complaining about the kids today. And my thing is, you're either going to adapt and accept. You got to first accept who they are and why they are the way they are. And then if you're as good as you say you are, then how are you going to work with this group? And if you can't accept where they're at, and you can't then adapt your style. I'm so old school. Joshua, you're probably the same way, Josh. I am old school, and yet I've learned how to blend the new school blend in, because of I've got to meet these kids where they are. And a lot of it, everyone wants to blame parents. Listen, have any generation of kid come out of from their parents and said, my parents killed it? Our generation of parents were the best generation of parents of all time. No, we all are in therapy because of our parents. They did the very best they could, right? So, yes, parents, whatever. What changed is tech. What changed is They have a computer in their hand, and so their brain does not have to work as much. Kids don't know what, do you know what a card catalog is, Gray?
Like the old ones you'd get with the like from the different companies that would have the coupons and stuff in it. Is that what you're
No,
talking
a card catalog is in a library, just so you know. It was
about?
in a library. Um, and you probably don't know what microfilm or microfiche is.
Okay.
And so our brain, everything is here, and our brain doesn't have to work as hard. Also, when you are on, these kids are on their phones or we're on our phones, our stress level goes up 80%. So the cortisol level goes up 80%. So we're self-inducing survival, or what I call red zone. So we are, every time we're going onto our phones, cortisol goes up 80%. And then we are like changing our mental health, our emotional state, right? We're self-inducing panic, basically. And so with the devices coming so quickly, and the companies knew exactly what they did. It is harder to break your addiction from your phone than it is to get off of heroin. And they knew exactly what they were doing, and they hooked an entire generation. And I tell everyone, if I grew up with that in my hand, I'd be the same way the kids are today.
Yeah.
So brain is a muscle. They don't really have to use it as much. Their also prefrontal cortex is about 4 to 6 years behind because of their phone. So if you're working with an 18-year-old, you're really working with a 12, 14-year-old brain. So this is why I would never be a college coach, because I'm not going to rely on my salary on 12 to 16-year-old brains, right? But they think they're coaching 18 to 22-year-olds, and they're not. They're coaching 12 to 16-year-olds. That's what's changed.
That's so,
I didn't realize it was so like such a big jump.
Mm-hmm.
you know, I had a conversation with somebody yesterday. We were talking about somebody that works in tech
Mm-hmm.
and app developer, phone person, tech person. And they go, hey, I know that person. You know what's interesting? I'm like, what? He goes, they don't allow technology in their home.
Mm-hmm.
The people who work in the industry don't, and it might have been a rumor, right? Like something people say.
Yep.
Somebody talked about how who's the Apple guy? Guy developed Apple. What's his name?
Steve Jobs.
Didn't allow iPhones in his home.
No, he did not. They knew exactly what they were doing and the dangers of it, and it's a drug, and it's the most addictive drug out there.
It's like the guy developing chemo that doesn't get on chemo when he has cancer. He's like, I'm out. Not
I'm
happening.
out. You got it.
So it's interesting. I have a conversation. In coaching, we all get excited when we have that one person that you're like, oh, he's different.
Mm-hmm.
She's different. They compete different. They're built different. They prepare different. I don't always look at the talent. I look at the preparation when I look at kids. Oh, they do all the little things right, and the talent already there, right? And we get excited. I have made the mistake before, and I'm cautious about making a mistake today now, where you meet a kid that's 13, 14,
Yep.
and you're like, and listen, high level talent, I can recognize it. I can see a clip of a film and watch 2 clips and go, it's different.
Mm-hmm.
It's not hard if you've seen it 1,000 times. I can't explain to you what it means, but I know it when I see it.
Mm-hmm.
And they become 13, 14, and they got the big, strong body. And we start immediately treating them like they're 18.
Yes.
That 8th or 9th grader can play varsity.
Yes.
We can do this. And I've made that mistake. And I put the expectations on them at 14 that I would on an 18-year-old kid of the same talent level. And I'll be honest with you, I think I've messed kids up by coaching the 13, 14-year-old kid like he's 18.
Mm-hmm.
For my own education, like this can be just our own private meeting. How do you manage that as a coach?
Yep.
How do you see that? Because I'm cautious about it now. Anytime I hear coaches, oh, he should play varsity next year. Well, it's still a 14-year-old brain.
Yep.
He deals with failure. Failure here. This is a real sensitive spot for failure.
He's also an 8-year-old brain. He's not 14. He's actually an 8-year-old brain. So how would you train an 8-year-old? I think that you just nailed it. You said the word expectations. If you meet with any of my college student athletes, they're not having fun in their sport. They might like it. And you're like, what changed? And they'll tell you what was different when you were 6, when you were just starting out and they're like, no pressure. And I'm like, what creates pressure? Expectations. Expectations is robbing our kids of joy and freedom to play, freedom to take risks, freedom to make mistakes. And so I don't let expectations. Now, our brain, when you have a goal, it's really easy then to go expectations. Expectations are in the future, But what happens with expectations is, what if I'm not that good? What if I do lose? What if I go up to varsity and I suck? And then what happens is those what ifs come in, and that creates fear. We're never going to play our best when we're in a constant state of fear. So what I do is, like, your brain will go there. You've got to be conscious to go, oh my gosh, I'm going there, especially as the adult, especially as the coach. Oh my gosh, I am even going to expectations. Goals should be used to set standards. Standards are 100% in your control. And you can say to yourself, I know if I do these things 80% or more of the time, it's going to give me a chance to reach my goal. The one thing I do know for sure is, if I don't do these things 80% or more of the time, I'm probably not going to reach my goal. And then you're looking for how you reach your standards. Expectations, you're looking at how you've just failed. Think about it. If you're expected X, Y, and Z, you don't get rewarded when you supposedly meet those expectations. What I look at standards is like, hey, you hit 3 out of your 4 standards today. That's phenomenal. Why? Why did you hit them? And then you didn't hit this one. How are we going to make a change so we hit it tomorrow? So we're looking for the good. And then when we don't reach something, we can have an assessment of like, okay, you didn't hit it. Cool. Why? Now, what are we going to do, or what are you going to do for tomorrow so we can meet that standard? Because it's completely in your control. And yet you're human, and you're not perfect, and you're not a robot, and you're not always going to hit your standards. And so now you see this freedom. You're looking for the good. You're looking for how they're doing that. And especially with this generation, because they're so in their heads and they don't know how to deal with the things in their head, because they just pick up their phone when they get uncomfortable. Now, when they're uncomfortable, they don't know how to push through the discomfort. They will seek comfort. We all do. We're like our dogs. We all seek comfort. We all have our go-to. This is, and that's where you might say, well, and the excuses start to come out and all that kind of stuff. And you're like, whoa, 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 what's going on? And so it's helping them also then train them to push through that discomfort. So you didn't hit a standard, you're uncomfortable. And yet, what are we going to do tomorrow to hit it? So you hit it right on the head as soon as you set expectations. And I think for some of it is, as a coach or as adults, we have to start going, wait, are these like, it's not about me. The ego gets so into it. Right? Everyone wants to know what it's like to meet with pro athletes. I'm like, they're people who do something exceptional that we can see, that we put high value on. I'm more impressed with the person that's in the chemistry lab trying to cure cancer. Like that's impressive. But in our world, entertainment, sports has high social value. And so, but they're all human. I tell them all the time, what's the difference between talking to a 10-year-old, a college athlete, and a pro athlete? I'm like, not much, except I can swear. And I can maybe use some different language.
There's
and yet
value in
it's
that.
the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I don't think there's a player or a coach out there that's not going to hear the last 3 minutes of what you said and go, I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there. You know, parents always talk to me about them wanting their kid to play. I guess that's the problem, right? Parents will talk to me about wanting their kid to play.
You got it.
Right. The parents come to me. And, I had a parent come to me one time and say, I'd really like for you to start working with my 12 or 13-year-old. They've expressed the desire to play in college. I know we laugh about it, right? We
Right.
laugh, but they're serious.
Yeah. Oh,
My
absolutely.
kid, every opportunity they have. And I go, that kid doesn't even know what it's like to play in college.
Right.
Outside of, and here's the problem, both the parents played in college. Right. My kid has expressed that they want to play in college. We want to give them every opportunity. And I'm like, man, that's a lot to unpack there.
Super. Right. And by the way, I keep telling parents right now, the college game, what it looks like right now, it's going to be different in 2 years. These kids are going to be employees. It's going to be a vastly different experience. And I used to say this 10 years ago. I'm like, if there was no college scholarship, what would you be doing differently right now as a parent? Pretend like there's no college scholarship that exists, because it really doesn't exist for most. So like, there's no college scholarship. Like what would, well, we wouldn't be spending all this money, and we wouldn't be traveling, and I wouldn't be getting all this other kind of stuff. I'm like, well, then what are you doing? And your kid is going to show and tell you if they really want it, because it's when no one's watching, they're out doing all the extra stuff. I have 3 stepkids now, and I tell them all, what drives my commitment to you is what I see and hear from you every day. If you are committed, I will commit money. I will commit my time, my energy.
100%. Yeah.
But like, that's what drives it.
I've never had a kid I've identified as a high performer. And it was a kid whose parents consistently got on their ass.
Mhm.
You know what the parents probably telling them? Hey, can you come home from the cage? It's 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Like, dude, why are you up at 7 o'clock getting ready to go shoot hoop? Like,
Yeah.
they'll hit me up and be like, all my kid wants to do is this. I said, that's great. You don't drive them. Now we have to frame an environment, right, to find uh most high performers. So I work in a high school environment now. Before I worked in a training center environment that worked with college pros,
Yep.
high motivated kids.
Yep.
I never spent a minute motivating kids. I
Not our
put
job.
brakes on them. I
Yes.
was pumping the brakes on 99% of the kids that came in to see me.
Absolutely.
They're like, Coach, I can do fifth day. Coach, I can do fifth day. Coach, what? No, bro, chill out.
Go home.
Go home, right?
Yeah.
And going from one environment to the other was very confusing for me, and I struggled with it. And I've had parents come to me and say, "My kid's almost my kid's. This isn't coming from home.
Yeah.
This is what the kid has, right? He wants more. He wants more. He wants more. I've never met a high performer where they were inspired to do more by a dad who's like, son, you're wasting it. You have way more athletic talent than I did. You're wasting it. Or
Mhm.
why are you here sitting down playing video games? You need to be shooting hoops if you want to be any good. You tell me you want to be any good and you're not out shooting hoops.
Exactly.
He doesn't want it.
Yep.
Why push it?
Yep.
Right? Why murder
Because it's there, you have to separate and realize ego. That's your ego. Parents have to
exactly.
learn to sit. Yeah. Parents have got to learn to sit in their discomfort. Parents want to fix everything. They want to micromanage everything. They see all this. And I'm tempted. I see it. I can feel it sometimes. Like the 8-year-old who, my boy, like he's like wants to do extra training sessions at Apex and he's playing lacrosse and he wants, as soon as he gets home, he wants to throw the football. He wants to do all the things. My girls, God love them. I love them.
Yeah.
And yet my job isn't to push. I go, all I care about is that you're active and that you have learn about a healthy lifestyle. And yeah, if you want to go to robotics club, go do robotics club.
Yeah.
And my wife played at the Naval Academy basketball, right? I played high level soccer. Like, I don't care. Like, I care if they care. I don't, you have to separate out your ego and you can see all the talent, sure. And yet me trying to do and create, I never create anything for them. If they ask me to come out, I'll come out, but I'm not running the show, right? Now that doesn't mean I don't destroy them and teach them like how to be graceful losers, but
Yeah.
you know, like
Yeah. My kid.
that's just
Yeah.
part
Yeah.
of it.
I'm on board with that with my kid. My kid's got an ego.
Mhm.
People I've contacted my kids like, boy, he's confident. I'm like, yeah, you can use that. You can call it confidence if you want.
Yeah.
I don't call it confidence. They go, oh, he's a confident kid. Um, when my kid was born, I actually had a little prayer that I hope he wouldn't get involved in youth sports. I'm gonna be
Yeah.
honest. I being involved with it so long, um, it's toxic. And I didn't want my kid.
It's more than toxic. My student athletes in college are traumatized. And I know people will say little t, big T. There is no little t, big T trauma. If it is impacting your ability to perform, have relationships, be coached, receive feedback, it's trauma. They are suffering from trauma, both the men and the women in college, many of them, and then the pros have a trauma responses. You can see it. And a lot of it has to do with, yes, parents, but mainly like youth coaches.
I could see that entirely. I don't know if you're familiar with Greenville soccer clubs
Okay.
up here. I played soccer in Greenville my whole life, and there is a particular club up here that's like, if you're not, 6 years old and wanting to play at a high level or play in college, like you're not worth the time.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
it's
Okay.
it's
Did you
just
play for
like,
that?
yeah, I did. I did
Oh,
until I was like 15, and then I decided to leave because I was like,
That's called
okay.
economics. They want your
Exactly. It's like
want your
it's like political.
it's
But
money.
it's just really, really crazy to exist in that space where like soccer went from being my whole life. Like it was my favorite sport in the world. It still is my favorite sport.
Mhm.
And I left it
Yep.
it's almost like being pushed out, being forced to leave. And I
Yeah.
just think it's crazy that we're in an environment to do that to our kids.
I don't understand, and I say this to parents all the time, your kid is being abused by the coach.
Yeah.
If someone went up and punched your kid in the face, an adult, you would be all over them. And yet what they're doing is psychologically and emotionally the same thing. I cringe when I go to games, and it might not be the coaches that are coaching my kids, but listening to other coaches. And I'm like, how is this acceptable? How are you allowing this to happen? Do you not see and hear what is going on? You can see the faces, you can see the body language of these kids, and you're sucking the life out of them. And you're doing it's a long-term damage. Like it
I
is.
I think part of it from personal experience is like they think they're building tough minds to like destroy a mind and like tear someone down and try to like build them back up. But I feel like obviously it doesn't happen that way. Like you make the kids hate their sport or hate sports in general to where they
And
don't want to
fear.
play.
They're
Yeah.
so afraid to make a mistake. And we all know, being in this field, if we don't make a boatload of mistakes and you don't train on the edge of your ability, you're not going to grow. And when you train on the edge of your ability, you are going to teeter over the edge. That I better see. I want to see a terribly executed practice, because you are so finding your edge and trying to calibrate. Like that's what practice is for. If you're going to be a hot mess, be the hot mess in practice,
Mhm.
right? Like that's the thing. If I see a good practice like executed, I'm like, nah, you're playing safe. You're playing safe. Like I
Yeah.
want to see mistakes. It's not the mistake, it's your response to it, right?
Mhm.
And that's the thing. And coaches will say, no, I want mistakes. And then the kid makes a mistake and the arms go up, they're screaming at the kid. I'm like, you tell them to make a mistake, and then that is your behavior. That is all about you. If I could, I would strap coaches into Cracker Barrel rocking chairs during a game. Enjoy the show.
Yeah.
It's going to be a circus. You're going to see the elephant poop on the field. You're going to see a trapeze person fall off the trapeze. And then you might see the person on the unicycle with fire doing great. Like that is youth sports. It's pro sports. We are dealing with human beings that are super complex, and many of them have not been given the skills to be able to manage what's going on up in their heads and what they're feeling in their body. And they're doing the very best they can. And I tell parents and coaches all the time, the kid did not wake up this morning and go, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to piss off my coach and my parents, and I'm going to suck. And I'm going to play terrible passes just to piss them off. And yet that's how we react. Like they're doing it on purpose.
When my 8-year-old does something wrong, I used to not, I understand this now. He would do something, say just something around the house, do something wrong or a mistake. I go, buddy, why'd you do that? He goes, I don't know. You know what? I now believe him.
He doesn't know.
He doesn't know why he did it.
Nope.
I said, you know, you hear people say, have some common sense. He doesn't have it. He's 8.
None.
He has no
Nope.
common sense. He will literally do something and be like we'll be sitting here and we're chilling, and all of a sudden a shoe goes flying across the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you doing? Why'd
Yeah.
you do that?
I
And
felt like,
and he goes, I don't know.
yeah,
That used to bother me, and now I started to be like, he really doesn't know. He
doesn't know.
has no clue why he just did that. You know, one thing I'm going to comment on, this coaching space right now loves to bash parents.
Yep.
And we hear coaches are getting out of it because of the parents, and coaches are getting out of it because parents suck. And parents, where's the accountability to the coaches? There's some crappy coaches, right? And there needs to be, both sides of the aisle can be wrong. There are really bad parents. I've experienced really bad parents, but I've also experienced really bad coaches.
Oh yeah.
And what they don't want, you know, what was the stat? I feel like this is a stat that they've thrown out for the last 20 years. And I'm sure the stat's wrong now, that 70% of the kids quit sport by the age of 13.
That's true. It might be higher now.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, I think I first heard that stat in like 2008.
Yeah, it's higher.
So I say that all the time, and I'm like, I'm not sure if it's true anymore. There's got to be some nuance there. And they're like, oh, parent pressure. Well, what about bad coaches?
It's a combo of both, right? If you have a good coach, they're going to know how to manage. And when I deal now with parents that are like that, I feel for the kid. Like it's not about me. The parents are coming at me. Anytime someone comes at you like that, they're showing and telling you they're uncomfortable in their body and they're taking it out on you. Right. So for me, if I have a parent or a coach even come at me or anything, I'm like, this isn't about you, Tiff. Right. And I'm always like holding space. Like, is there something I can do to connect with this parent right now? Because this parent's going home with this kid. And this poor kid didn't choose this. And like, I know what's about to go down for this poor kid down the road. And same with the coaches. I will say one thing about our youth sports program in our country. We are one of the only countries in the world that do not train our coaches. You played sports, you're going to go. I went to school for how many years to do what I did? You too, Josh, right? Gray, I'm not like Gray. Like we go to school, like nutritionists, strength coaches, massage therapists, athletic trainers. We all go to school for how many years? And yet we're like, oh, you played, you're in. They have the most touch points with our athletes with the absolute least amount of training. They should be taking psych and adolescent development courses and biomechanics and understanding and pedagogy. How do you teach the skill?
How to teach. Yeah.
How to teach. And they don't. I would much rather my mom, who has not an athletic bone in her body, God love her, and was a first grade teacher. My mom could go out and teach kids and classroom manage and use language and understands different learning styles and could break down more skills in soccer or any sport than most of the coaches can. I tell parents all the time, don't go for the coach that you think is going to find the coach that can teach.
That's funny that you say that because my best coaches that I had were my high school lacrosse coaches and they were my PE teachers.
Yes.
And so they just like not only could relate to us, but they had a way about teaching. They knew how to teach. They knew how to be around kids.
Yeah.
All of my other youth sports coaches, like my soccer coaches, they were not teachers. They were just out there, like they played high level soccer at some point in their life.
And they scream at you because their ego is so involved in you. And then they beat you down and they say, I'm trying to build, like you said, mental toughness. In today's generation, you can't smoke and mirror kids. Even though they're like behind, there are areas where they're way ahead because they have access to so much information and they can just Google like whatever. I am upfront with kids. Hey, I'm going to create a training session right now that I'm creating the environment that you're going to think, feel, hear, and see when you're in competition. And you may struggle with this. And I'm right here walking by your side. We're going to talk about it. If you struggle, we're going to talk about why and see how we can make a change. And if you kill it, I want you to tell me why. That's the other thing. We don't give kids an opportunity of like, they do well, right? They don't know. They know why they sucked a lot of times. They don't know why they played well. And how are they going to replicate good if they don't even know why they played well? And so I always say, why did you play well? You got to give me some things. And they'll be like, I don't know. I was on cloud nine. I was just feeling it. Well, how are we going to cloud nine? Where's feeling it? There are reasons why you felt it. There were reasons why you felt like you were on cloud nine. Let's capture those moments because we want to replicate those as much as possible. But they're great at telling you why they didn't play well. And so I'm not a big sandwich person. I'm not kumbaya, but you also got to meet these kids where they're at. I knew why I played well back in my day. I could have told you why I played well, and I could have told you why I didn't play well, right? I didn't need anyone to tell me that. And yet these kids are looking for such affirmation because they have such little self-belief. We talk about confidence and self-belief, but confidence is different than self-belief. Confidence are 4 facts. You've either done them or you didn't do them, right? So preparation, are you fit? I call blue zone training where you're locked in, laser focused, playing on the edge of your ability, doing all that kind of stuff. It doesn't mean you don't make mistakes. And then experience. Those are the 4. If you've done those 4 things, okay, you are going to walk in. You should be walking in like, I'm ready to go. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. And yet I'm ready. But what kills kids, because a lot of times, especially the ones we work with, are elite and they're doing those 4 things. And yet they are so in their heads. They seem like they have little confidence, but what they're showing and telling you is their self-belief. It's all the stuff in our heads. I would rather a high self-belief person with low confidence because they're coming back from an injury and they weren't able to do all these things. They're still going to find a way to be really good. They're going to find a way. It might not be their best, but they're going to find a way to play their best on that day. You could have a high confident athlete with low self-belief and they're going to beat down the facts. They're going to talk themselves out of it. So though we want to spend so much time talking on confidence, those are factual. And yet if you have so low self-belief, it almost doesn't matter that you should be puffing your chest up and having confidence. So it's working more on athletes learning about how to develop their own self-belief. And it can't be, I believe in you, because here's what I tell them. My coach doesn't believe in me. Do you believe in you? No. I'm like, then why would your coach believe in you? I know what you might be able to do, but they're waiting for someone to believe in them to maybe believe in themselves. And that doesn't hold. So a lot of my work now, especially one-on-one with athletes, is going inward, right? And that's where the trauma stuff starts to come up, right? Like it got beaten out of me here, or this coach said this to me.
Yeah.
So,
I think some of the scariest environments for a kid ever is on the ride home with dad.
oh yeah.
Yeah, what you tell a kid first after a game is I always, I still use it with my kid because he's 8 and it works. Every time my kid plays, I said, I love watching you play soccer.
Yeah.
And I walk away from the conversation.
Good for you.
Why? Because my kid will lose a game Saturday.
Yep.
It's fun to watch him. He's ultra competitive, ultra physical.
Hmm.
Um,
Shocking.
yeah. Ultra
Shocked.
physical, ultra competitive. Um, I had a teacher one time hit me up and be like, I watch him play out there. He just hates to lose. I go, good. Well, it's just a little bit too much from the competitive side. Good. Sweet.
Yeah, don't lose that.
You're saying that's bad. It's not.
Hmm.
They'll walk off a soccer field, score 2 goals, do great, lose 3-2 in tears.
Yeah.
I said, buddy, I love watching you play. And I
Mhm.
love that you care so much.
Hmm.
Let's go home and go somewhere else. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But
Yes.
let's go somewhere else. Let's do something completely different. Let's go home. And I love watching you play. I'm glad that you care.
Hmm.
And how many kids walk to the car? Dad snatches his bag.
Yep.
They're getting in the car, and the kid knows it's coming.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
What's your problem today on the field?
Yep.
What do you? I'm not going to come to any more of these games if I have to watch you play that way.
Yep.
Right?
Or they attack the coach. What was the coach thinking? Why did they have this
But your coach
teammate?
sucks. It's not on you. Your coach sucks.
Yep. It's one or the other. Yep.
Right? And boy, I hear it so much that I'm like, do they hear what they're saying? Having other parents bash kids to me, their kid, well, I need you to help me get something out of him because that kid just doesn't know what he's doing. And I'm like, you're the problem, bro.
Yeah.
You're the problem,
Yep.
right? I had a recent conversation to touch on something you spoke about earlier. A friend of mine introduced me to somebody from Europe, and they were involved in youth soccer in Europe. They moved
Oh, yeah.
here,
Oh, good. Go ahead. I was going to bring this up.
and they said, I said, "What do you see here that's different in Europe?" He goes, man, we spend a lot of time in Europe educating our coaches on how to coach.
Hmm.
And we don't allow parents to have an influence on how we coach. He said, here, I go, the coaches aren't very educated on coaching. He doesn't even say the sport, on how to coach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they let the parents dictate way too much.
Hmm.
Because in Europe, we educate our coaches and then tell the parents, well, if this isn't for you, then maybe there's something else better.
Hmm. You know
Maybe,
what else they do? They don't play a competitive game until they're 12.
well, that's a long-term athletic development model that when you
Right.
really look at long-term athletic development models, the long-term athletic development model has turned into Kleenex. Kleenex is a brand, right?
Hmm.
But not everything is Kleenex. Kleenex is a brand. Everybody started making tissue paper and calling it Kleenex. Long-term athletic development is a brand put together by a certain human from Europe.
Hmm.
And now everybody has their own long-term athletic development model. I'm like, no, that's not the original model.
Hmm.
And I put on Twitter just recently a conversation I had 20 years ago with a parent. I actually got to spend time with the guy that developed the model, long-term athletic development. And there's 12, the parents came in, knew I came from a big tennis facility. And they came in and they're like, hey, I want you to help build a long-term plan for my kid to be successful.
Hmm.
And I said, that's cool, but here's what the next 2 years looks like, 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And it was very little competition,
Yep.
a lot more practice and development.
Yep.
The parents said, well, we can't do that. That'll hurt our ranking.
Yeah. Yes. Oh God, don't get me started with
And
tennis.
they stopped. They wouldn't train with me.
I
They
know.
wouldn't train with me.
But that's what I mean with in overseas with being 12, the parents aren't as psycho because there's no games to be psycho about. You're right. I don't think it's for everyone. And yet what does that do over in Europe? The parents are like, well, shoot, there's no game to go watch. Like there's nothing, like my kid's just going to train. So their ego isn't so tied to what's going on with their kid because there's no comparing a game to another team. And so that's why also they're not as psycho and the kids get to learn.
Yeah, I feel like that just working with parents, because I work with a lot of women that are like in 30s, 40s, 50s, have their kids that are in youth sports. I would say that contributes to overall parent happiness too, because you're not constantly running around taking your kid to 16 different practices, long tournament weekends when they're 9, 10 years old. So that really is saved until they're a little bit older.
You got it.
I
And
haven't really thought of
multi-sports.
that the
And
more,
multi-sports, Josh.
Yeah.
oh, and there's
Yeah, it was a multi-sport.
that's
Multi-sports.
I kind of joke with people and light the fire a little bit when people are like sports specialization, all these tournaments. I go, yep, capitalism ruined it for everybody again.
Yep,
Like,
absolutely.
I just make a little joke about like, up, see, negatives of capitalism here in America.
I
Right?
mean, I also would like to hear your opinion on this, Josh, because these injuries that are popping up, and we can go into ACL tears with lacrosse women and soccer women and everything like that. When I played soccer and we were super high level, there were 2 ACL tears the 4 years I was there for my teammates, and they were sisters.
Yeah.
Okay, so probably genetic. It was just not happening. Like we had the ankles, we had the contact injuries, we had 2. And what I'm saying is by the number of games and the amount of practices and training sessions, when they get to college at 18, they're not 18-year-old bodies. Their minds are 12 to 16 years old. Their bodies are like 28-year-olds.
Yeah.
There is so much wear and tear. I wouldn't play soccer for 6 months. I was playing basketball and swimming and doing softball and using my body in different ways. I was not doing soccer all year round. And guess what? I was better because of it. When I got back from the sports, I was better. And my mind thought like an athlete. I don't want a soccer player. I want an athlete who plays soccer.
Right.
I don't want a golfer. I want an athlete who plays golf. The athlete mindset is vastly different, but what we're creating is this singular robotic way of thinking rather than thinking about like, figure it out, feel it. What would you do? Think about it as I'm sure the 2 of you, we could go out and play any sport and we'd figure it out. Even tactically, kids today cannot, even if though we're watching film and whatever, but everyone's dictating how to watch it. Like there's no freedom for these kids to feel and do different things. And it's so sad because you can see it. They're not smart. They're not smart players.
There's 2 things I'd say about, like, you talk about the injury.
Yeah.
We know more about injury prevention than we've ever had
Right.
history of the world. Injuries like ACLs are still on a rise.
Yeah. Right.
We see the research, but we don't want to do anything about it.
Right.
So you're seeing it in the pitching arm, you're seeing it in the side of the knee, you're seeing it in all areas of sports, you're seeing it in concussions. The athletes who get injured the least are the better athletes. Right?
Right.
I've seen a big I know a kid right now, it might be a first round draft pick in the NFL. I saw him one time get high load bent backwards, and I thought the knee was completely exploded, and he got up and walked away.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my, like my knee would have just shrapnel.
Yeah.
And I've seen them do it, but he played multiple sports, he learned multiple different patterns. So sports specialization does have a direct consequence of higher injury rate.
Yep.
Just like walking through the same path in the woods would wear down the same patch of grass.
Yep.
So yes, increasing your likelihood of being sports specializing early. And when I say early, I say under 17.
Yep.
I do know some kids that were draft picks in baseball coming out, and they quit sports their senior year to focus on baseball because there's $2 million on the line. I get it.
Yeah.
Yes. That's not my kid. I'm not going to be right. I get it.
Right. Yes.
The other thing we're seeing is there's a great documentary right now on, I think it's been on Amazon for a long time, Amazon Prime. Something the greatness. I can't remember.
Oh, yes. I forget it too, but it's awesome.
Talks to Wayne Gretzky's dad.
Yep.
And he said, what makes your kid different than everybody else? He goes, when my kid was 11, 12, 13 years old, he was playing pickup hockey on the pond. And that's all he did for hours and hours and hours a day.
Yep.
In return, he created creativity with hockey puck.
Yep.
So because he was 12 years old playing with 16-year-olds and he was smaller than everybody, he had to be very creative with how he played hockey to score goals.
Yep.
When he learned all the other things with hockey, he became unstoppable because he had all of that free play creativity.
You got it. You got it.
And he learned creative ways to score. A friend of mine knew the Curry family. Steph Curry was the same way.
Yep.
It was so small that he had to create ways to score that when his puberty caught up, he was unstoppable because he had all these creative ways. We are creating mechanical robots now
Yes.
on the athletic field where all they do is technique, organize. You go into a bunch of 8-year-olds and throw a baseball, a soccer ball, a tennis racket. That's how I used to play with my kid. We take all the sports out in the backyard and he'd create different sports with all of them and we'd play with it and have fun. And then we're done.
Yep.
We're teaching tactical experiences to 8-year-olds playing soccer.
Yep.
No creativity.
So if you read a book called Anxious Generation,
I read it. Got it upstairs.
Yep. And that's the number one thing is we've taken away unstructured play. We control the real world experiences way too much, but then don't control where we should, which is the virtual world or the social media world. So we are overprotective in the real world, underprotective in there. But really what has happened is unstructured play. Also learning how to fall. They have those pictures in the book where they show what playgrounds used to look like and now what playgrounds look like. And there's even rules in playgrounds. There were no rules in playgrounds. It was survival of the fittest. And it was awesome. And you would climb and someone would grab your leg if you were playing king or queen of the mountain. It was king back then, but king of the mountain. You threw yourself off swing sets.
Yeah.
You got as high as you could and then you jumped as far as you could and you'd have to figure out how to roll and twist so you didn't break anything. It was awesome. It was awesome. And now parents like, where's my kid? Where's my kid? Oh my gosh, we have to, no, you can't do that. I'm like, go rogue. You guys sort it out. You're arguing right now. Figure it out. Like, is anyone bleeding? No? Good. Then I'm not involved.
Yeah. I still get calls from the elementary school. They're like, hey, we just want to let you know. Asher fell. He bumped his knee. There's a bone sticking out. Is this an emergency?
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah.
Right?
Why are you calling me? He bumped his knee.
We're fine. He's good. Learning to fall is a good one. I grew up in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world and has a lot of experience in judo. And we always tell people don't reach for the floor because it's coming. It's going to be there. Don't reach for it. How many times have you seen somebody fall and they reach for the floor? No, it's both inverted. Right? And it goes inverted, right? Learning how to fall is the biggest one that happens in free play. Messing around, tackling, wrestling with your buddies. I use the term, we got to teach our kids ways to do dangerous things carefully. Let them do dangerous things by who can jump over the creek and somebody's going to get muddy. Right? Yet, you've heard the term snowplow parent?
Oh, yeah.
Is that a thing?
There's different. There's the helicopter. Then there was a snowplow. I'm gonna plow all the hard things out. And then there's the Velcro parent who literally is just attached to their kids.
Okay, I've never heard that.
So those are the three: helicopter, Velcro, and snowplow.
Oh wow, the snowplow. The Velcro is a good one, right? The Velcro is a good one. I have found that a large percent of the people who are snowplow parents, meaning they're trying to clear the path for simple and easy for their kid. They want everything to be simple and easy so they don't struggle. Two things I've noticed. That parent has dealt with something traumatic with that kid early on, and they don't want it to happen again. Or that parent dealt with something struggle and traumatic early on. They don't want it to happen to their kid. What they don't realize is that person is usually highly successful. And the reason they're highly successful is because they had to go through all that struggle.
You got it.
Your kid will never be highly successful if you have to clear the path for that struggle, because that is what pruned you to be who you are.
You got it.
I have a hard time. I know a parent that their kid had a lot of sickness and illness very
Mm,
4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old.
mhm,
And uh and this was probably 10 years ago. And they tried to clear the path for everything to be easy for their kid from there on
mhm.
because I mean the kid had like pediatric cancer, played football and had all kinds of issues. I understand a parent who's like they're now traumatized.
Yes.
Their kid went through pe- cancer as a young kid. He's had enough struggle and enough fight. I need some things to be easier for my son now because I can understand that's a tough thing to be in.
Yeah.
That's a
Mhm.
tough place to be in. I have empathy for that. I have empathy for
Yeah.
that.
And that a good book for this whole resilience training is called What Happened to You. And some people will maybe be on this and listen to this and be like, oh, Oprah's on it and not want to be like, what is Oprah? But Oprah met with Dr. Perry. And so it's a combo book where Oprah's in there asking Dr. Perry questions about her experience working with Dr. Perry. And Dr. Perry is one of the leading neuroscience psych people in the world and does brain scans and has done all this stuff on trauma, but resilience. So the first kind of half of the book is about resilience and how do you really develop it? And it's not, and that you, it's more task specific. It's not like you're resilient or you're not. Well, you're resilient because I've seen you be resilient here. And yet now over here, it seems like you're not. And so the linkage between resilience and trauma and when do you, all this kind of stuff. It's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I love it because it's what happened to you, not what's wrong with you. And as parents, like we have to do the work on ourselves because we will carry our trauma into how then we parent. And so that's why I let off by I think I wish everyone was in therapy because if everyone was in therapy and like really working on themselves, we would be better teammates and colleagues and parents and all the things when it comes to relationships. And so and it's so many and you can see it playing out. Like I can sit back and go, I know why you're feeling uncomfortable right now because you've told me, and yet it's learning how to sit in your discomfort as a parent. You've got to sit in discomfort. I always say if it is going to cause emotional trauma, we step in. If it's not going to and it's just discomfort, right? So a kid brings the wrong t-shirt to school. Let's just say that they go to private school, they bring the wrong t-shirt. God love her. My wife will be like, I gotta go bring the right t-shirt. And I'm like, no,
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah.
that this is uncomfortable. This is uncomfort. This is not having the wrong t-shirt is not, if that's causing emotional trauma, we got some other stuff going on, not emotional trauma,
Mhm.
right? Yes, they might be picked on, they might get a demerit, they might whatever. Well, guess what? Maybe they will then remember, bring the right t-shirt, right?
Right. Mhm.
But if it's so but that's you got to sit in that discomfort. I'm like, hun, yes, they're gonna be uncomfortable. They're in the wrong t-shirt. It's not, it's discomfort. They got to sit in it. Let them sit in
They
it.
have to make mistakes.
They
Yeah.
have to make the mistakes. And now, yet, if there's an emotional trauma piece, which, it's people might have different definitions of what's emotional trauma. And yet I can pretty much sure we've all been through middle school and
Uh-huh.
know the living hell that middle school is. Yes.
Yeah.
Mean girls, all of that kind of stuff. It's you got to arm the kids with the tools. Now, every now and then, I'm not saying you don't step in as a parent, right? And yet shouldn't be that often depending on your social situation where you live, all that kind of stuff. I want to preempt that, but like, yeah, you got to start to say what is considered emotional trauma and what is considered just discomfort. And if it's discomfort, we got to let them sit in it, and that means we have to sit in it and not fix it.
Yeah. Getting cut from the cheerleading team is not emotional trauma,
Correct.
right? Uh,
Correct.
but you have somebody that doesn't make that cheerleading, you're gonna have a mama talking to cut. You're gonna so and so's better. How can I believe she got what? Not making a team.
Yeah, not emotional trauma.
That's not emotional trauma. It's
Nope.
right. um, not making, you know,
Not starting, not
not
emotional
starting is
trauma.
not
Not
getting
getting
into
playing time.
not getting into the college you want to.
Yep,
It's
not
not
emotional trauma.
emotional trauma. That's not
Nope.
parents who people that try to snowplow that.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking away amazing opportunities for your kid to get better.
Yep.
Mhm.
Amazing opportunities. One of the first experiences that ever happened to me when I realized this was an issue is in 2011, 12. I worked with a kid who was first round draft pick out of high school for basic
Mm. Mm-hmm.
$2.3 million signing bonus.
Mm-hmm.
And the kid started to change and started having conversations with him. And he goes, Coach, what am I not as good as everybody thinks I am?
There goes expectations.
And he goes, what if I'm not worth 2.3 million?
Yep, here we go. The what ifs.
And as he goes, and what ended up happening to do his first couple of years of, because we all know when you get drafted out, you're not expected to go to the majors right away. You got
No.
5 years, right?
Of a really hard life, because
Of
those are not fun places to play.
playing in baseball fields that were worse than you played in
Yes.
little league, right?
Yep.
And this kid grew up in baseball mecca, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he started to try to earn $2.3 million at every at bat.
Yep.
Every at bat, he felt like he had to bat 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
That there was no room for failure because this team put $2.3 million in him.
Mm-hmm.
And what if I'm not as good as that? And at the time, I really didn't know what to say to the kid
Mm-hmm.
because I just always felt kids just had it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And to be honest with you, even at my age, if somebody gave me $2.3 million to go do a job, I'll be honest with you. My first inclination would be, I'm turning it down because I don't need that.
Mm.
Now that I don't need $2.3 million.
I was like, oh, we need to have a different discussion over here. Okay.
That I don't need 2.3 million. Please, people. But the expectation that comes with $2.3 million, even saying that right now, elevated my heart rate.
Yep.
Now go do that to an 18-year-old kid who just loves to play baseball. Because I had a kid this week tell me that's very good. He goes, I said, buddy, why do you think you're performing at such a good level, more level than most people? A 15-year-old kid said this to me. He goes, Coach, I just think I love baseball more than most people.
Yep.
So I play it all the time. One of the greatest jiu-jitsu practitioners in the world is a guy named Marcelo Garcia. They interviewed him and said, why are you the best in the world right now? He goes, because I love it more than everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So I do it more than it means more to me than everything.
I think we have to read what love is. Love is the suck. Love is the doing the process.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so when people hear love, they think, oh, you love what I see on game day.
They love the process.
They love the process. And that's what people need to talk more about. I was just up in Chicago speaking at an event, and John Smoltz was there.
Yeah.
And he was talking, he was
played baseball, Gray.
Yeah.
I know who John Schultz is.
Yeah.
I'm not stupid. I grew up in baseball.
Okay, so John Smoltz was incredible. Like he talked for an hour and a half, and I normally would have checked out and been like, okay, this is the same old. And he was small growing up. Like his parents were accordion players. He used to play the accordion. That was his thing. And he was and his dad traveled playing the accordion. And he just went out and started playing baseball and just started pitching and just started doing his thing. He never was trained. He was never coached.
That's crazy.
He just taught basically himself, and he loved it. He loved the grind, the hard, and he talked about all the times that he was uncomfortable and didn't, he was smaller than everyone else. He told his mom, I guess when he was like 8 or 10, his mom was like, what are you going to do for a living? He's like, I'm going to be a pro baseball player. And she's like, okay, this is before he grew. And she's like, okay, honey, well, what are you going to do if you don't do that? He's like, I'll be a gas attendant at the gas station. I think that's the other thing too, is that we've got to start helping kids. You can be really talented. Who you are might allow you to be really good at what you do, but what you do isn't who you are. And so I always want the best pro athletes are the ones that have something else that they really love. It can be another sport. It can be art. It can be being a dad or a mom. Like my best free, the players that feel the most free and have joy are the ones that are like, I am really blessed that I get to do this. And I don't know when my body's going to give out, because at one point my body might just give out. And yet that's okay because I'm going back to school, or it's okay because I have this other passion, or it's okay because this isn't who I am. I've just been lucky to be able to do this. And so that's why I love working with youth athletes, because I can start that process. It's way harder by the time you get into college, because it's been it's solidified in them as their identity. It can be a piece of who you are. It should never be the everything, because who you are probably is what's making you be really good at this. Mm-hmm. And yet if this goes away, you are still who you are. So who are you?
I feel like I've been like reflecting so much during this entire conversation just of like my sports and how I am now and stuff. And I feel like you get to a positive place. Like right now, for example, in my like personal fitness, I've never loved fitness so much and working out so much and being active so much because there's no pressure on it.
Yeah.
The only pressure applied is from me and how I want to perform and how I want to do. So I just feel like taking this into my own life, because Alston and I will have kids one day, I think about these things of like not putting pressure on the kids to perform and being like, you got to love what you want to do and you find the competition and you find the creativity and stuff. I feel like just asking yourselves, where did I come from in this? Why am I the way that I am? How do I see this in my personal life? I think this is all so valuable in someone's life and how they view sport and activity in general.
Yeah, I think parents, if they want to know, parents are always like, well, then what do I do? I love what you say, Joshua, to your son afterwards. The only time I step in is if it's something that is a parent thing you should step in on. They yelled at the ref, right? They're not a good teammate.
Oh no, yeah. Disrespect on the field doesn't
Disrespect on you because
yeah.
you can't be disrespectful in a classroom and you're not going to survive in the real world if you're disrespectful to your boss. So if it is transferable
Yeah.
Mhm.
to life and it's a habit that could hurt them in their lives, that is where you step in as a parent. So I don't say anything, but if my oldest gets in the car and starts saying we lost that because of the refs, oh, now we are opening up the door. Now we are going to have a conversation because what are you going to do? Blame when you don't get the raise, blame when you don't get the grade you think you should have gotten in the classroom. So now where can you step in as a parent? You step in if you have to be a parent and there's life skills that if they develop this life skill in this sport like this, it's going to impact them in all these other areas. So that's always my marker is I'm like same as you. I'm like, do you have fun? Cool. Let's go get some ice cream. Right. I'm not kidding. People are like, what do you say to them when you get in the car? They have you in the car. I'm like, nothing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything. If they ask me a question, I still navigate because a lot of times kids are asking you a question and they're just trapping you. They're setting you up as a parent. There's no win. Like they want to see if they can set you up. And I'm like, I'm not falling for this. I'll ask questions back to them. Well, what did you think? What did you feel? What was your experience like? I'm not giving any of my input. But that's always a good way when parents, I'm like, because then parents don't parent. They try to coach when they shouldn't coach. Why'd the coach do this tactics? Why did you do this? Da, 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 da. I'm like, oh my gosh. And yet then when they should step in as parents, your kid was just a horrible human to another teammate and you're not going to say anything? Or they were super disrespectful to the coach, or they were disrespectful to the referee, and you're not going to step in and say something about that, but you're going to critique the game and you're not even the coach. Be a parent, let the coaches coach.
Yeah.
And if the coach isn't a good coach, then get out and find, and I'm not saying you switch teams, but you went here because you thought this guy was going to get you to a college scholarship. I'd rather you go play rec with the teacher who's going to teach your kid.
Yeah. Blaming your teammates is a big one for me with my kid.
Yep.
The team scores and they start bickering back and forth. I'll yell at it. I'm not the loud parent, but I will say, hey, real quick, and he can hear my voice. Hey, and I'll do this.
Yep.
Blaming it ain't no, sir. We are not.
You're parenting. You're parenting.
We are not doing that. My kid has done jujitsu off and on. He's 8 since he was 5, right?
Yep.
And he's pretty proficient at it, believe it or not. And it's my passion. I've done it forever, but I'll never coach him.
Yeah.
And one time we were watching Asher in class, and his mom was there, ultra competitive woman, and she goes, "Is Asher doing that right?" And I'm looking at my phone during his jujitsu. I'm watching jujitsu videos.
Yeah.
I'm watching jujitsu videos, and I go, "No, that's not really that right." She goes, "Well, shouldn't you tell him how to do it right?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Well, can you go out on the mat and fix it?" I go, "You want me to walk out on that jujitsu mat with that other coach and correct my son in the middle of the coach? Not happening. Not a chance." She goes, "Well, I'll show him." I said, "You walk out there, I will trip you, embarrass you in front of everybody, and tackle you. You're not out on that field." The first soccer event we went to, he fell down and got hurt. She wants to walk out on the field. I said, "I will snag you by your hair extension."
Yep.
No, ma'am. We are not walking out on the field. I had a mom one year, a boy went out at varsity. It was scrub time. We're up by 1,000. And her younger, smaller boy went out and got hit in the shoulder and broke his collarbone.
Yeah.
By the mechanics of it, I was like, that's a broken collarbone.
Yep.
I saw the mom come down the stairs, run around, go to the guy. I jumped in front of her. I said, do not emasculate your son in front of his friends. His head didn't fall off.
Yep.
There's not body parts all over. Oh, I'm like, stop. Do not walk out on that field.
Like if your kid gets knocked out and they're bringing a stretcher out, like, and you're worried that
That's
they can't move.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's different.
Yes, he might have lost all usage of his appendix. Fine. But like even a break, I'm like, okay, it's a break. Maybe if it's compound, it's out of the skin and all that kind of stuff. Maybe
blood's blurting through the
yes,
through the nerve. Yeah.
yeah.
You talked about something earlier that I want to touch on. Derek Jeter retired, and someone's like, "Are you gonna miss this? Are you gonna miss that?" He goes, "Well, I'll miss the locker room,
Yeah.
and the dudes and the camaraderie, but I don't think I'll miss the sport because it doesn't define who I am."
Yes.
I'm really excited about these next steps. I've seen 18-year-old kids in tears in the fetal position on their last football game ever to play.
Yeah.
They don't know where to go.
Yeah.
We've all heard of the professional athlete who retires and now has a pain pill addiction.
Yes.
Right? We all have heard about every bit of my identity is based on this sport that's based on my athleticism that's fleeting every day. You're getting less and less closer. I once had a guy who called me one day he was playing South American League, and he goes, a professional baseball player, a phenomenal college baseball player, one of the best college baseball players to ever play. And, he goes, I'm done.
Yeah.
What do you mean you're done? He goes, I told myself that the day I didn't wake up in the morning and the first thing I wanted to do was run out on the field, I was stealing somebody else's spot. He was a baseball player at this time.
Yep.
I'm stealing somebody else's spot. It's not the first place I want to be. My wife is at home pregnant. I'm more excited of going to my professional career outside of baseball and more excited to go be a dad than I am to go onto this baseball field right now. And I told myself, the moment that happens, I'm done. And I'm calling the people that invested into me to let them know, thank you for investing in me, but I think I'm done. And I went,
yep,
that might be the best conversation I've ever had in my life.
You know, one of the things I work with a lot is your consciousness, right? Like when we do things unconsciously, basically out of fear, and we're not aware of that, that's when you live with regret, remorse, all of that. When you can consciously make a decision and say, like, I'm not choosing this because of fear. I'm literally choosing this. And I know it's still uncomfortable. You're choosing between two discomforts. Am I going to stay here when I know I'm done and this isn't really what I want to be? Or am I going to choose to step in discomfort because I'm done and I know I'm done and I'm consciously done? And the only reason I would stay in this is the fear of what am I going to do next? And so when you know that, that was easier for him because he consciously, you can't say if you really sat down with him, did you have some fear about, you know, stepping into this part of your life? And he'd be like, probably yes. And yet so conscious about it. And I'm not going to stay in it because of that fear. I'm going to choose to walk into this discomfort because this also is uncomfortable. And the only reason I would stay is because of fear of what people would think or letting people down or all that kind of stuff. And so we always have these choices. I always say, when you have two discomforts, when one discomfort becomes more, you'll choose to step into it, like step into that discomfort. So if losing, or not, how about this, not playing, not getting time on the field, versus having to do the work. So both are uncomfortable. So if this one starts to be more uncomfortable than doing the work, so being there and sitting there and not getting on the field, then you're going to step into the discomfort of doing the more work because this one's become more uncomfortable. So it always comes down to, but I find when you're not conscious of something and then you're not, and then even if you are, you choose I'm going to choose comfort, meaning this is too scary. Then we live with regrets. Then we live with remorse. Then we live with all of that. But the athletes who have stepped away, who have consciously done so, that you ask them, they're like, I had zero regrets. John Smoltz is like, I have zero regrets because he made conscious decisions and he didn't usually choose things because he was scared.
Yeah. Wow. I tell you, I would later on in line, I would like to do a part 2.
Yeah,
Sure.
definitely.
We've learned, people are like, oh, your podcasts are usually about an hour. I said, that's because the statistics say most people aren't going to watch a podcast past 1 hour unless you're Joe Rogan.
Yep.
And I can still honestly say I don't think I've ever watched the beginning and the end of a 3-hour Joe Rogan.
Yep.
But this was so useful. I hope this is a subject I learned early on in my career, the tactical side of training athletes. I learned how to program.
Yeah.
I learned how to teach technique. I learned about long-term athletic development. One of the things I say I was probably best at in my career was taking a young child and develop a plan through 18. Like,
Mhm.
give me a kid, and I've had parents say, my kid's 12, you have them for the rest of his career. Great. And I can map out a plan. I was very good at that. Long-term planning. Nobody ever taught me how to coach.
Yeah.
Nobody ever taught me how to connect to kids. Nobody ever taught me how to change the language, how to get the most out of kids. I was very good at the tactical side
Mhm.
coaching, just like a coach who knows how to do the X's and O's of a basketball play,
Mhm.
but doesn't know how to get the kids to do it,
Right.
how to communicate to the kids. This was something I've learned and studied, even leadership concepts
Mhm.
have been things that I realized probably after coaching 15 years. Boy, I suck. I'm really bad at coaching. I'm great at the tactical side.
Yeah.
To the point that I was for a long time on the speaking circuit and I stopped
Yeah.
because I'm like, and I say this all the time, I don't ever want to watch another deadlift video. I don't ever want to watch another seminar on my off-season training program.
Mm.
I don't ever want to go to a conference and a guy explain what his upper body progression looks like for high school kids. That's easy.
Right.
You go learn how to coach, you will be pruned as a
Yep.
human being.
Yes.
Mhm.
It is a whole different ball game.
Mhm.
This is where I need improvement. This is where I think people need improvement.
Mhm.
Um, thank you very much for coming on.
Of course.
I really truly didn't know all of what you did. Like, me and Grace say this all the time. We're doing the two things we despise the most in culture is what the world doesn't need is new online fitness coaches and podcasts.
Mhm.
Here we are. We're
Here we are.
coaches and we're running podcasts, right? I think the first podcast I even admitted, it's like, I'm doing something I despise the most. I'm doing what the world needs the least more of, podcasts
Mhm.
and online fitness coaches, but here we are.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Your industry has become a little bit cliche. You
House.
hear all the people say, I'm a mental coach.
Mhm.
I'm a health mental performance coach. All the way down to, I bet you've had people go, oh, you're a life coach. No, like, no. So, I almost compare it to so many women, as soon as they have a baby, they become parent experts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, no, you got a 6-month-old. You're just passionate
They're
about
on TikTok. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
parenting for they got a 6-month-old, right?
Yep.
I am so glad as we have our communication that you are not that at all.
Thank you.
It was really awesome to have this conversation. I hope coaches and parents and people listen to it. I will say this:
Mhm.
people are going to listen to this, and they're going to say, "Oh man, I got so many parents that need to hear this." No, you need to hear it, butthole.
Yeah.
You need to hear it.
Yeah.
No.
I'll put posts up on social media around sports specialization
Yeah.
and travel play, and then all these travel ball coaches like it. I said, "You're the problem. Don't you like this? I'm talking about you.
Yeah.
Right? I'm talking about you. You're the problem, travel ball coach.
Yeah.
Right? Don't like this and jump on that bandwagon."
Yeah.
But thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, guys.
I think it was great. I would love to do a part 2. And also
Yeah. And
about
where can we find you?
yes,
Like, do you have social
uh,
media or anything like
yeah.
that?
I do. Do I post a lot? No, but it's it's just Dr. Tiff Jones
Okay.
on Insta. And my website's under revamp, or normally I
Okay.
would send everyone there. So
You can share it. Listen,
Yeah.
just comment and we'll put you in touch with her if you're interested.
Yeah.
Awesome.
100%.
All right. Thank you, Tiff. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
With all due respect.